Hello, friends. Welcome to the Note Coach podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg, joined today by Katie Hunt, and we're going to talk about pivoting. Now, if you're a Friends fan, do you ever watch Friends, Katie?
Oh, yes, of
Do you remember
course.
the pivot episode?
Yes,
So,
with the
for
couch.
anyone who hasn't watched it, I think it's Ross and Chandler are moving a couch into the new apartment, and they're in the stairwell. And I don't know, have you ever tried to move furniture upstairs? It is a nightmare. Last time I moved, I just hired someone. I was like, my back and my mental capacity, my relationship with my husband cannot stand this. So anyway, they're trying to get this couch up the staircase. And I think it's Ross is saying, pivot,
Yeah.
pivot, pivot. And Chandler's like, I am pivoting. So whenever anyone says pivot, that's the mental scene that plays in my mind. And if I
Oh,
remember,
yeah.
I probably won't, but if I do, I'll find a YouTube clip of just that, like 30 seconds, and I'll put it in the show notes because that is just hilarious. So
Oh, yeah.
for the listeners, Katie, do you want to give them like a brief outline of your current pivot? What's happening for you?
Sure. So my recent pivot has taken me from focusing on healing people, mostly with anxiety and stress, into the world of helping people to find love. I'm an energy healer and a spiritual life coach. And so for many years, I think I thought the way that I was supposed to serve and help people was through this form of healing that I have. You have anxiety. This is what you need to do to heal it. You have a heartbreak. But what I was finding was that a lot of the time, the people I was speaking to weren't necessarily ready to take the steps to overcome the anxiety. I was hearing a lot of, oh, everything you're saying is speaking so much to me, or I can relate to everything you're saying, but people were having a hard time taking action. And so when I feel into the energy of where I'm headed now, helping people to find love, it feels so light and so colorful. And it's still a way that I can help people heal, but it's in a way that's a lot more sexy. So,
I love that. And I think,
that's
have
all.
you ever seen that meme? And it has one sign that says hard truths, and there's like nobody in the queue, and the other one says like, compassionate lies or whatever, and people are going out the door. Facing your anxiety or facing something that's like a phobia or anxiety, mood disorder, a challenging thing, bullying, oh, the list goes on. It's not fun, it's not sexy, it's not light, it's not saying
Yeah.
it's not important work, totally is,
Yeah.
but there's a place and a space, and for you it's like, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And if you're like actually pivoting into people looking for love, I don't know, I'm just trying to think, if I had a session with somebody, energy healer, coach, or whatever, and it's like, today I want to talk about my anxiety, I just, because I do have anxiety, for anyone listening, I'm not making light of it, it's challenging.
Mhm.
No, I don't want to, but it's like, oh, we're going to talk about looking for love. Well, I'm already married, so, but but it's like, yes, I'm there.
Right.
Or I live vicariously through my friends looking for love. But do you know what I mean? Like, there's something um more, yeah, light is a great way of describing it. But what I want to talk
Totally.
about for anyone listening, whether or not you have anxiety or you're looking for love or whatever, is the pivoting, because sometimes it's often it's scary to pivot if you are established in something, or if you're good at doing something, or if you've made a name for yourself doing something, to
Mhm.
change to something else. So I'd love to know, what's that experience been for you? Because just for reference, for anyone listening, Katie and I met at a networking event,
Mhm.
and she was talking about helping people with love. And so I looked up her website, like, as you do, doing a loving lurking social media website stalk. And I was like,
Yeah.
your website kind of looks a bit, I think it was corporate-y, or was it was
It
it,
was to help corporate women heal from burnout. Yeah.
there it is.
That's
And I was
my
like,
niche.
where's the love here? And then you're like, I'm in the middle of a
There's the
pivot,
love.
and I was like, oh, I want to talk about this.
Yeah. It was very new when you and I met. Yeah. It's still very fresh.
So was it
The
scary, like, to be like, actually, I'm gonna pause this and start that?
Oh my God. It was it was very scary. It was bloody is the word that wants to come to me. It was a lot of screaming and crying and shaking my fists at the roof and asking why and banging my head against the wall. It was a lot of struggle. And all of that struggle happened before I finally pivoted. So up until the point where I decided to pivot, I was doing all of the things and I kept getting all sorts of positive feedback that I was doing good things, good work with clients, and the messaging was on point and I was working with this person and that person. And everything I was doing wasn't working. And I'm not a quitter, right? Like a lot of your listeners probably are high achieving entrepreneurial business types who don't quit. And I just kept going and going and going. And I started to become so depleted and so frustrated, and I was banging my head against the wall. And it got to a place where I was like, not like this. I'm done. And so I was actually going to walk away from my business. And to get to that place was the most heartbreaking experience I'd ever been through because it was like facing failure. I felt like I failed and I took all of these big leaps of faith and they didn't work out. And so it was an incredibly grief stricken part of my life. And I just decided, like, I don't think I have a lot of control right now. I think the universe was guiding me in a place, or my subconscious mind was maybe trying to show me something different. And so I just felt like I had no choice but to stop and surrender and to just let it all go. But because I did that, I could finally start to hear what really wanted to come in and how this pivot could actually take place. And I did kick it away at first because I was like, "Ugh, I don't want to be a relationship coach." But then it kept coming in, and then the whole offer came in, and everything just sort of downloaded. And I was like, what a beautiful thing to help people to find really incredible, ideal relationships, like not just somebody to date, but truly your life companion. That's one of the most juiciest parts of life, I feel like, is human love. It's like finding a life partner and finding somebody who you can have fun with at Home Depot on a Saturday, like life isn't always romance and canoeing and all of that stuff, right? Like, so to me, that feels so exciting. And it's also a way that I can help and support people because in order for us to become a match for an amazing relationship like that, or for us to be able to hold that kind of relationship without blowing it up, we need to do some healing. So it was like, oh, this isn't that far away from what I was doing. It just has like a pinker lens on it.
I love that so many things. Firstly, I laughed when you said surrender, and I'm going to hold this up. So if you're not watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Audible, this is a plug. Come watch me on YouTube, Suzanne Kohlberg. You'll find it, or the Nope Coach, whichever. But I have my word of the year, and it's surrender. So my word of the year for 2024, and I have it on this little sign. And what I laugh about whenever I see this is I can't stand the font of the S. Like to me, it looks like they just chopped half of it off. When it arrived in the mail, I literally had to look like, is it broken? I'm looking around. So I had to surrender every time I look at my surrender sign. Because
That's
the
also a
S annoys me.
challenge. Like, yeah.
But so, side note for anyone, a word of the year is something powerful indeed, and something, to truly embody. And it's also an invitation, because I don't know how many times I've been invited this year to surrender. And it's like, oh, maybe I should pick billionaire for next year's word.
I
Anyway,
know.
that was one thing. And the other thing that you pointed out was a life companion, someone you can go to Home Depot with. And what dropped to mind for me, there was one time when both of my children were quite sick with a stomach bug. My husband and I were exhausted and we're up to our elbows washing sheets and everything. And he just looked at me. He's like, there's nobody I'd rather do this with. It's just, it was like, as you said, people have the Instagram filtered photos where they're, under the Eiffel Tower or all this magic stuff. And it's like, no, it's the day-to-day grind where you're like, or you run out of fuel on the side of the road, or, something, your house floods. And it's like, there's nobody I'd rather do this with.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. I think that that's love, man. That's true love. And that you're there with somebody, elbow deep in bad sheets, peed cover sheets, and you're like, I love you so much. We're
We've
just
got
doing this
this.
life right now.
And I think that's the thing. I think I don't know, like, side note or tangent, Hollywood, Hallmark have a lot to answer for with the perfection and whatever. And people are like, well, I didn't get that. And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
but that's not real. Nobody gets that. That's the whole cameras rolling and lights. And, it's not that you never have a rupture. It's that you know how to repair. And it's not that you don't ever bicker. It's that you move past it. So all of this to
Yeah.
say, back into this pivoting thing, I love you're like, the signs are there, the nudges are there, the universe is kind of like redirecting you. And in the
Mhm.
beginning, that you brought point to the railing against it and the fist is like, I don't want to. And
Yeah.
depending on where you are in business, those of you listening, we can have invested a lot, not just like time and energy, but money. You could have, depending on your business, branding and websites and copy and SEO and everything that's directed towards this. Like I know it was the case for you because you and I chatted and you were talking about love and I looked at your website and it was about corporate and I was, slightly confused. But also
Mhm.
too, for anyone listening, don't let that dissuade you from doing your pivot because I
Yeah.
believe that your aligned best fit clients, they're gonna get that impression of you. And they're not gonna, because some people are like, oh, I look unprofessional. And it's like, no, you just ask, hey, what's this about? You said you do this and there's here. So I think the pivot can be gradual. So I've pivoted in my business and I did it in stages, similar to you. Started talking about the new thing I'm doing, similar to you. Didn't want to do this new thing. I'm not interested in talking to people about boundaries. Like I'm the world's biggest people pleaser. But
Challenge, another challenge.
and then over time, the new backdrop came, the new colors, the new website. It was a more gradual process, but nothing you ever did was wasted because the first business that you built or the first thing you created, it gave you a set of skills, even if it wasn't as successful in the way that you hoped, or it was, but you felt burnt out. That pivot, you're not starting from scratch. You're not pulling out your entire foundation. You're just doing like a internal renovation situation.
Yes. Yeah, I think that that is really important to mention too, that sunken cost fallacy. I've been thinking about that and even talking to my coach this morning, she's like you're this old business that you have is this old you. It's this old vibration. Eventually you do need to get rid of it. And the thought of letting it go completely, it scares me right now still. And so I'm being very gentle with myself in this pivot, but it's so true that none of that was a waste. That even if one day none of that even gets used, all that I learned about marketing, all of the connections that I've made, all of the people that I got to help under that, that's not a waste. And it all can go towards this new thing. And so, I've even chatted with somebody who they spent over like 30K building a funnel. And turns out the funnel just isn't going to work for them. And so instead of forcing it and continuing to put more money into it, they decided to just, okay, then the funnel isn't for me. And to be able to fail fast in a sense, for sure, but to be able to be willing to walk away when something's not working or being willing to listen, I think is what it is. And that's, I think,
Mm.
when we need to trust, whether it's I'm putting up, I'm having a hissy fit because my ego doesn't want to do the thing, or when it's, I think that there's something that I'm not paying attention to. Maybe there's something, a bigger version of what I'm doing now that wants to come through that we need to be willing to listen to.
I just made a note. I did a whole episode on the sunk cost fallacy. So once again, if I remember, I will link that into the show notes for this episode. But the thing I will reiterate in case people don't want to listen to that episode or I forget to link it. But in my way of looking at things, we have three currencies. We have time, we have energy, and we have money.
Yeah.
The money is already gone. Like, if you've spent, as you said, $30,000 on a funnel for your friend or on a website or whatever, like that money is gone. And
Mhm.
sometimes we keep investing our time and energy to try and recoup. But, if you're like, actually, that money's gone. And I can't remember if I spoke about this on that episode or another one. I have over 400 episodes of this show. But basically, I once invested in a mastermind, which was a very expensive mastermind. It was a lot of money. So I
Mhm.
put the money in. And very shortly into it, I realized it wasn't for me. Like I wasn't a fit. I'm not saying that the mastermind wasn't great. It probably was, but it wasn't great for me.
Mhm.
So I could continue to invest my time and energy there every single week, or I could be like, cut my losses and leave. And my word of the year that year, I can't remember the exact word, but the intentionality I had is I wanted to overcome my sense of obligation. And I was like, I'm only turning up to these calls because I feel obligated to, like because I've paid
Yeah.
for this. And I was like, wow. So it was an expensive lesson to be like, I've dropped all this money here. but I don't need to keep showing up for something that isn't aligned, isn't moving the needle forward, isn't what I thought it was. And what did I learn from that? To be a lot more discerning and not get too sucked in by a pretty sales page and a call, like an onboarding call. Like for now, I don't ever buy anything on the call. I don't care what you offer me. You could offer me a first class trip to the Maldives and it'd be no, because I need to think, I need space, I need to be on my own to make a decision, and I know that I get swept up into other people's excitement about stuff, and then when I get away from them, I'm like, "What am I doing?" So, and if people aren't willing to do that, then we're not gonna work well together, so it's a no from me. And you might be listening and go, "She's gonna turn down a first class trip to the Maldives." Even if I had that and it was magically paid for by this person, I would still need to be with them for however long it was for. I probably still need to pay for food. I need to organize care for my children. Like when they say there's no such thing as a free lunch, I think that's
That's
what it
so
really
real.
means. What is this
Yeah.
really costing you?
Yeah, that is so true.
So
I think
what
that's
was
also a
oh,
very good
sorry.
policy. No, I was just gonna say I think that's a great policy to have is to say no, and then you can always think about it and then come back. Yeah.
And I think slowing the sale down in whatever it is, if it's like, because even when they're like, oh, there's only this many places left, is that really true? Like, I've got a whole playlist on questionable business practices because, sometimes it's not really even true. But there are places in this world where, say, you were going for a house, if the house sells to someone else, like the house is gone. But a lot of these things, they aren't gone. They're going to run that program again next year. Or
Mhm.
maybe it's not the right program for you and you missing out is not you missing out. It's favorable in some other way. But back to this pivot,
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
curious, the raging and that sort of stuff. Why love? Like, what was the draw towards that?
Mm. So I spent a lot of my adult life single. And so also being an energy healer, I played a lot with like manifestation tools and things like that. And so over the years, I have manifested several great relationships. Um, but then after my last one, they weren't really all quite the right fit.
Mm.
And so after my last one, I was really hurting a lot. I had a really low kind of self-esteem. It really kind of took me out. And so I had a lot of healing to do. And since I was so deep already in healing work, the method that was sort of delivered to me was a little bit unique to what I was learning and was being taught in other spaces. And so I was able to, through my process, I was able to attract in the most ideal candidate for myself, the most ideal partner that I could have ever like thought in my mind. I did it in a way that was so fun and it happened really, really quick. And it gets better and better and better every single day. And so him and I were very grateful for our relationship. We expressed that a lot at the time. And I just really started to think like, I really want everybody to feel this way because I know what it's like to be, lonely on a Saturday night or wondering when it's going to happen for you. And so I always sort of had this thing, and I was really frustrated hearing about dating apps and how they're just making money off of them. They're not even designed to help people get together. And I'm like, everybody deserves to find a partner if that's what they want. Like, stop making it hard. So, all of these little pieces, I think, were just being planted in my mind over the last 2 years. And then one day, like I said, I was gonna quit my business, I was gonna walk away. I was in a client session and it just dropped in. It was like, it was a sentence like, "I wanna help women to attract in their true love." And I was like, "Ah, no." And then it just kept coming and coming and coming. And then I shared it with my partner and he was like, before I could even finish my sentence, he was like, "Oh yeah, that's what you're gonna do." I knew it. And I was like, so then the pieces started to kind of come in, and the more that I leaned into it and explored it, it felt better and better and better. I know what it's like to be single. I know what it's like to be on the apps, and I know what it's like to go on dates and it be horrible. And you just are doing dating because you're a really intelligent person, so you take a strategic approach to dating and it just kills the romance. And so I just want to do my part to help people to find love and not
Oh,
settle.
not settle. Yes. And I love that you kind of, you have the inkling, you have the nudges, you're like, oh no, no, no. And then it comes in crystal clear. And for everybody, for anyone listening, we all have our ways of, manifesting, tuning in, trusting, whatever language you want to use, depending where you are on the woo scale.
Mhm.
And, I call mine my spidey senses, and people who know me well will be like, what's your spidey sense on this? And, give me
Mhm.
a scenario. But sometimes when it's ready, it will come in like fully formed like that, like I'm going to do this. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it takes some trial and error. And that's the other thing too, when you think about, in terms of pivoting in business, not everybody hits it out of the park straight away in whatever they do for a career. Like there are some people, my husband's one of them, who know what they want to do, go to university, study the thing, and become that 20, 30 years later. They're still doing the same thing. And
Mhm.
then there are those of us who kind of have an idea, do something, trial it for a bit, realize we don't like it, go over here, realize we don't like that either. And people will, back to your sunk cost fallacy point, be like, oh, well, this was a waste or that was a waste. And it was like, no, it was an investment of, this much time or this much money or this much energy to know that actually that wasn't the thing I wanted to do. Because, like, there's
Mhm.
one thing, I don't want to leave this earth and be on my deathbed and go, I could have done X. I much would rather have tried it and gone, actually, that wasn't for me, and
Mhm.
know than have regrets.
Yes, that's that part. I think we need to make more decisions like that. Like, will you regret not doing it? And at least you can say, and that's the thing about, pivoting or something not working out the way you want to is looking at that as like, at least I can say that I did it. At least I can say that I tried. And that pride, those things are the things that you think about in those moments. You would think if like, what if I didn't pivot? What if I didn't risk looking dumb in front of people? You
And
would
the thing
always
is, I
wonder.
think that's the biggest thing everyone has in their heads, myself included. I'm going to look dumb in front of people. But how often do people not even notice or know? Like, it's like, you did what now? And it's funny. We can do something that, like, I wrote a book in 2021, and to me, it felt like it was so much of my business. I spoke about it on podcasts. Did interviews about it. I wrote about it to my newsletter. I haven't, albeit I haven't spoken about it much in the last year or so because I have pivoted my business, so it's not related, but I do mention it from time to time. Recently, I updated my website, so I have an everything page. So you can go to my website, and you can see everything that I offer. I was like, why never I did this before? It's so easy. Anyway, when I launched that and sent it to my list, not one, but two people who know me well, who have been on my list for a long time, who followed me, go, you wrote a book? And it's just like, so I think sometimes we're worried that we're going to publicly fail or whatever, and
Mhm.
people don't even notice.
Yeah. They don't. They're all wrapped up in their own stuff. And that's what that's what I think too is like anyone who's going to judge you for this, they just don't get it. Then they've just never been in this position. But, people who are growth minded or, successful people, they've failed a bunch or things that they've tried has not worked out and they've had to pivot too or try something different. Like they'll get it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes there'll be one pivot and sometimes there'll be multiple pivots. And sometimes you might end up going back to the first thing, but I don't think you regret it because what did you learn along the way? Who do you meet? And how has it changed and how's it shaped? Sometimes when I look at some of the things that I've done that have failed in my business, I actually think I'm so glad that didn't work. And that might sound counterintuitive, but if it had have worked, that's what I thought I would have needed to do to be successful. And those were times in my business where I was exhausted, depleted, overworked, and I just didn't enjoy myself. And I was like,
Mhm.
and that's how my life would have been. Yeah, no thanks. So as we're
That's a
starting to,
very good point.
thank you. As we're starting to wrap up, Katie, can you let the listeners know, like, what it is you do, what you offer, how they can work with you, how they can find you, like all the things?
Okay, all the things. Well, I work with everybody on Zoom, so we can work regardless of time and place. Right now, I'm offering a free weekly coaching collective. I'm calling it the Power and Purpose Collective.
Ooh.
And every Thursday, it's a drop-in kind of thing. You don't have to come every single week, but it's a time for you to hop in. And we will cover a different topic every single week that will help you to create a life of fulfillment and to become more magnetic. So the things that you want are more easily drawn to you and you don't have to do as much. And also, we spend some time learning. Sometimes it's more healing or meditation style, but there's always an opportunity for people to come and ask questions about things that maybe they're struggling with. And so it's an opportunity for people to get some free coaching. So I will provide that to you to share in the link description. It's awesome. It is so much fun. It's such a beautiful way for women to get together and to support each other. So
And I
highly
think it's such a
recommend.
great thing to, dip your toe in, try it, meet some other people, feel like you're not alone, get
Mhm.
some, get some coaching. And it's always amazing to me how sometimes people don't take advantage of free things that are on offer like that. It's like, yeah, totally. Try it out, test it out, meet some people. And it sounds beautiful. So yes, please give me the link. I'll put it in the show notes. And
Yes.
if anyone's listening to this and they're like, I've got two, usually I have one question. I've got two for you because we kind of covered two topics. First is if they're getting their own nudge to pivot, but they're kind of in that still like stage, what would you say to them?
I would say schedule some time in your calendar, turn off the lights, go on all fours, and just cry it out. You got to like get it out of your body, make like feel those feelings, like set the time to get it out of your body. And then just go sit by a river for a bit and just watch the water or go out in nature, because us trying to fix it and figure it out is exactly what is stopping the information of the pivot to pop into our minds. Because when we are in those stages of like banging our head against the wall, we can't hear anything else. We can't see anything because we're too close to the wall in a sense. So we need to take a step back and see that there's a ladder over there that I can climb over. So, as silly as it sounds, you need to let yourself grieve. If you're frustrated, if you're angry, if you're sad, that is totally fine. Cry it out, get it out, punch some stuff, and then go to a place that is in nature where you can allow yourself to be more open.
I
And
love
I
that. Two
promise
things
you,
came to mind when you said that. Firstly, kids have tantrums and then they're fine. And it's like,
yeah,
it's equivalent of an adult tantrum, confined
yeah,
in your own place, not turning up on YouTube as an internet sensation. But,
right, yeah.
and the second part of it is then go watch a live stream, but like a live stream that's actually water moving, not a live stream of someone else promising you something that's just false and fake and whatever. So it's like, can you imagine? I'm watching a live stream. Oh, okay. And people have in their mind that, you're watching a video or something, but you're actually watching the water go
A
past.
live stream.
So my second wrap up question would be
Mm,
for people, because your business is now, helping people find love and stuff. If people
mhm,
are exhausted and they're depleted and they're so over the apps, what like word of advice or piece of advice would you give them?
I would
Besides come to
say,
your Thursday thing.
right, yeah. Come work with me. I'll help you. I would say stop doing stuff that you don't like to do, and that includes the apps. Your focus is on joy and bringing in as much joy as you can, because when you are happy, you are more confident. So are you are willing to enter into spaces carrying yourself differently. You are ready to have different conversations, and you are also incredibly magnetic because you look brighter. You have a beautiful smile on your face. So even if you're like, there's no way I'm going to meet somebody at this pottery class, still go to the pottery class if it makes you feel happy, because you never know who you're going to meet there. You might meet your person's sister, or somebody who might know a person who gives you a really great business introduction. So follow the joy, because the breadcrumbs will start to appear. And just like when I said, go sit by the river, it helps you to get different ideas when you're in a better headspace. So
I love
focus on joy.
that.
Stop doing the shit.
The live stream. And that is so, not live stream, follow the joy, magnetic. That's where I was going. Because, yeah, sometimes our left brain never skips leg day. It's always thinking, overthinking, and be like, who am I going to meet at a pottery class? But as you said, you could meet the mother or the sister or the cousin or the next door neighbor, or like you don't even know. Like Providence is working in your favor. Instead
Mhm.
of like, well, I need to be on these apps. No, if it doesn't bring you joy, don't do it. Except
Yeah.
like laundry and basic, you know,
Yeah. That's
self-care, that's different. So, but in terms of finding love, I love that. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you everyone for listening. Catch you on the next one. Bye for now.